Hello, writers, and welcome to the Researchers Writing Podcast. This podcast is for all your researchers in the sciences who want to write papers in a structured and time efficient way so you can get published in top tier journals at a calm and steady pace. In this podcast, we talk about how we can write papers that are clear, concise, and compelling, and how to make the process of writing less hard. My name is Dr. Anna Clemens, and I am an academic writing coach with a PhD in chemistry. In the Researchers Writing Academy, my online program, I've helped hundreds of researchers get their papers published in their target journals using a streamlined writing process. If you want to succeed in your academic career, mentor your students effectively, and have your research make an impact in the world, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. Hello, writers. Thanks for tuning in today. Today's going to be interesting because I'm not feeling super comfortable talking about myself, but that's what we're doing today. I want to share a bit of like my story, because I noticed that whenever I do that, I get a lot of response. And of course, I understand that because I'm also always curious about people's stories. I love these kind of more behind the scenes episodes and podcasts. And well, maybe you just got to know me through the podcast and you may be wondering, well, who is she? Like, how did someone with a PhD in chemistry end up becoming an academic writing coach and running an academic writing program? So maybe you're just interested in a bit more of like the story of the Researchers Writing Academy and the Researchers Writing Podcast. So I thought, let's start with a now. Well, I currently live in Prague in the Czech Republic with my partner, who's also an academic or not also, who is an academic. I'm not an academic anymore. And my dog, Zuza, who maybe, I don't know, you may see in the background, at some point. And I founded a program called the Researchers Rating Academy in 2021. And since I started that program, well, we have helped hundreds of researchers develop an efficient writing process so they can get their papers published in top tier journals. The Researchers Writing Academy is an online program, and the backbone of that program is a course, an online course called the Journal Publication Formula. And in addition to that, we have sort of loads of elements in the Researchers Writing Academy. We have something called an accountability club where we check in weekly, make plans, and then reflect on those. We have co-writing. We have like weekly, hourly sessions. We have several monthly retreats with bigger blocks of time. We have an open co-writing room. Then we have feedback calls and storytelling workshops. We have a community, a book club, and like regular quarterly events. We have like planning workshops. We have writing sprints. Well, it's like a whole sort of one-stop shop academic writing program. And well, I'm not like alone running this program. It's together in my team, running this amazing small business. Um, so my team consists also of Andrea, who's doing a lot of the like really, really important operational stuff on the back end and helps me a lot with marketing. And we also have Yvonne, who mainly supports our members and really the user experience in the program, who, if you are a member of the Researchers Writing Academy, you of course have met both of them. And then we also have another academic writing coach, that's Dr. Emma Billington, who coaches together with me and gives feedback on writing our worksheets inside the program on calls. Well, so how did I get here? How did I get to running this amazing, lovely, very fulfilling business? Well, let's start with what I studied, I thought. I did my undergraduate degree in chemistry, which I studied in Germany, in Aachen. I grew up in Germany. And then I did my PhD in Sweden in material science at a physics department. And my PhD, well, was really, really tough, honestly, in the first few years. Um, there was just very little or confusing, honestly, guidance. And that was coupled with like massive imposter syndrome on my part. I literally felt like a fraud starting in a new field, working suddenly in a physics department as a chemist. And that was all coupled with loneliness as well. Um, and I know loneliness is kind of typical or can be typical if you move across, to a new country where you don't know anyone. And this is what was the case for me. I moved to a country, to a city where I didn't know anyone. So I don't know. I admire how brave I was back then, just moving there, not speaking the language, not knowing anyone, and yeah, starting in a new field and a new job. And yeah, that was difficult on its own. I also had very little self-confidence. Confidence, honestly, it's a topic that I struggle with continually. We can talk about that maybe different point. Um, but yeah, I think I was a bit unlucky with one of my supervisors. So it became a truly really tough 2 to 3 years. And I know my like particular situation is unique, of course, but I know that from working with researchers, but also from kind of being immersed in the academic community, on Twitter and LinkedIn, etc., I know that bad supervision and it's like horrid experiences while pursuing a PhD really is unfortunately very, very common. Well, in my particular case, I got just very little guidance on literally anything and everything. Um, and I know this is also very common in academia, unfortunately. I think I'm not lying if I say that basically almost all of our members in the Researchers Writing Academy have either had not any writing training at all, or just that the course, if they did any guidance or any training, that the course that they took was often actually not so helpful in terms of writing papers for top tier journals time efficiently. Well, if you are lucky, and you still manage to get a few good papers out, then often I've made the experience with our clients that then once they are a supervisor themselves, they are faced with a different challenge where, well, they just don't know how to teach their PhD students how to write a good paper, and how to manage the writing of kind of their lab, their team. Well, back to my experience, in the environment that I was at, well, there was kind of this air of pretense where it made me kind of believe, well, everyone else knows exactly how things work. Everyone else has it exactly figured out. And I thought that I also had to kind of pretend that I know everything already, that that's kind of what academia is like. And that, well, you can't ask for help. You can't yeah, you can't admit when you don't know something and ask questions. So I kind of struggled along teaching myself things. Eventually, I did ask and receive help on things like, well, how to obtain data in the best way, how to analyze my data in the best way, how to present my research to others. Well, all those parts that really are part of a PhD, right? It felt honestly endlessly frustrating. There were so many experiments that I just needed to repeat. It was also terribly inefficient, which is something I really hate. And well, it was also emotionally really, really difficult. Like I really, really struggled. I think it was the darkest time I've ever been in my life. Um, and I kind of admire that I kind of stuck it out, looking back. Anyway, um, I there was one point that was a bit of a turning point, And this is when I got to write, which maybe sounds funny to some of you listening or watching because I think this is a bit of a non-typical experience, but writing really became a refuge. Like, I felt relief when I got to write. First, I wrote my first paper. And then I wrote another one. I eventually wrote a licentiate thesis, which is something, you get to write in Sweden as kind of, it's a bit like a mini PhD, like halfway through. You kind of get like a mini degree, write a thesis, you print that, like you have a little defense. It's all, yeah, it's whole like basically trial PhD, if you will. And I did that. And when I was writing, I just loved hunkering down in front of my computer in my office, writing away. And I had this for the first time during my whole PhD. I had this like amazing sense of accomplishment. Like I felt accomplished whenever I finished like a paragraph, when I finished a page, when I finished a chapter. It just felt amazing to me. And I really felt like this sense of like, oh, I'm actually progressing. I'm actually producing something. I'm not just standing still, having to repeat things all the time or not knowing, basically before there was no sort of project planning that was even remotely possible. That's how I felt. Um, and it was funny because as I was really thriving, I noticed that my colleagues, the PhD students around me, were really astonished because they would grumble about having to write their thesis. They would find this whole period of writing immensely stressful, whereas I was really thriving and I ended up, helping others with their thesis, with their papers, giving kind of giving feedback on their writing. Yeah, things got better for me eventually during my PhD. I got to change supervisors. The whole environment changed for a huge part. But what really stayed the same was that, well, I continue to enjoy writing, most of all things. And then after I defended my PhD, I really thought about, well, what do I want to do? I didn't have a next job lined up. So I took some time to reflect. I took some coaching. I studied the job market, which means like I looked for jobs. I applied for jobs out there just to see, what kind of things there are, what kind of jobs I could be doing. And what became really clear to me that, well, I kind of wanted to combine writing and science. So I did a lot of self-reflection, um, and really wanted to understand what my passions were. And I didn't have like a job title in mind. I think this is kind of important in my journey. Um, I was just looking for gigs that kind of combine science and writing. So what I would end up doing is I was a freelancer and I would like ghostwrite reports, I would write news articles about like scientific discoveries for different channels and outlets. I would do like scientific editing work. I would do some translation work even. And I also went to do internships. I did one at a science communication agency, and then I did another one at a popular science magazine. That was actually what is the German daughter of Scientific American. It's called Spektrum der Wissenschaft. And that was a really great experience. I absolutely loved the writing and the editing, learned so much. And I actually continued to write for that popular science magazine afterwards. But also, yeah, I really experienced kind of the hardship of journalism in this day and age. It's super, super sad, but writing is not worth a lot in our society. Even though it's a really demanding task. And I just wanted to research my stories properly. I wanted to do things thoroughly. I wanted to do things well. I wanted to interview multiple sources. But then I realized, well, with the time I'm spending, I'm basically earning at best minimum wage. So I kind of knew that I needed to change something. And I started to edit papers. research papers for scientists on the side. And well, I accidentally built a business like that. Um, and the funny thing is, I again just followed what I enjoyed doing. This really maybe becomes like a red thread in my journey. Um, to get more clients, I started a blog. I started to write a blog and I started a Twitter account. And I would edit papers for researchers. And the way I would edit them was, again, in this like very thorough, in-depth way, which is just, I don't know, it's just the way I like doing things. I'd rather spend a long time on one thing and do it really, really well, like really put the puzzle pieces all together rather than doing like a lot of edit a lot of papers in shorter amount of time. And well, yeah, my editing was from the start, I really was concerned with the story a lot. I really tried to make sense out of the story that the paper was telling. I really tried to make that cohesive and clear. And I never forget this one client I had. It was honestly an awful experience at the time, but now it's kind of a funny story. Well, basically, they had me edit that paper. I edited the paper the way I always did, and when I sent it to that client, well, they then got back to me and they told me that, well, it wasn't really what they expected. They thought there was too much editing, that I did too much on their paper. And well, they were a bit angry or like frustrated or disappointed. Um, and yeah, I had been recommended to them, and apparently, like, there hadn't been enough communication on my part about, well, what my service, what my editing service was like. And um, well, that felt, of course, awful to me at the time. It's always, horrible when someone doesn't like your work. But then a couple of days later, they sent another email telling me that they actually really appreciated the edits and thought they were really, really good and were improving the paper. So then, well, that was good, of course. And actually, a few months later, they emailed again and they wanted me to edit another paper for them. So, anyway, the point of the story is I really realized, well, I'm doing things very differently from other editors, and it can be at times hard to communicate what I'm doing differently. And I also understood, well, I think I need a different service because I understood, okay, there's value in what I'm doing, but doing it the way I'm doing it is not really making sense. Um, I understood, well, editing comes in too late into the writing process. And basically, if a researcher has already written the whole manuscript, right, they're sending me like their complete draft. And then I'm basically there rewriting their whole paper at a point when they think, oh, I'm ready to submit. I just want to like have the grammar corrected or moving a few things about. And that's, of course, super annoying. And honestly, it's wasting a lot of time. And that's when it really dawned on me, well, the writing process should just be more efficient from the start. Do you find yourself feeling scatterbrained when you're writing a paper? If actually you've never been taught how to write a paper, the learning curve to know how to best structure the flow of your paper is hard. But that's why I created a free training video for you. Just go to researcherswritingpodcast.com/free and have me walk you through how you can become a more efficient writer so you can consistently publish your manuscript. That's researcherswritingpodcast.com/free. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So that's when I started offering one-to-one coaching, a program that was called From Data to Draft, where I really guided researchers through that process of writing a paper. So I would give my clients guidance on every step. We would meet for every step, and I would kind of review the progress. And it was really, really lovely to see that that program actually worked really well. I understood that my technique was working very well. Um, and also something I had done before a bit, but when the pandemic hit in 2020, another branch of my business really was exploding, and that was workshops for research groups and graduate schools. So I facilitated mainly online workshops on what was back then called my five-step paper writing process. And that was a lot of fun, and the feedback also was good. So that then meant that in 2021, I took a bit of a risk. I took 2 months off my normal work. I didn't do any workshops, didn't do any editing, and I developed what is now called the journal publication formula. That's the course with a few updates that I really still teach as a part of the Researchers Writing Academy to this day. And what I realized is that nobody was teaching writing the way I do. There are, of course, many writing coaches out there, and they are normally more concerned with, well, how do I make time to write? How do I fit writing in my schedule? And these kind of things. And then on the other hand, we have editors. We can take workshops where we learn more about how to improve the quality of our papers. And what I see, well, me doing inside nowadays, the Researchers Writing Academy, is more bridging both of those. So teaching really the writing process step by step. And then when you follow that process, you, as a sort of the result of that, end up with a really high quality paper. So you're kind of marrying the two. So on the 1st of June, 2021, we opened the doors to the Researchers Writing Academy. It's been more than 3 years. And I'm honestly still loving it so much. It's so much fun. It's been so much fun supporting researchers. At the time of recording, I just looked, we've had about 700 researchers go through the course, which is amazing. And well, here we are, like almost a whole decade later after my PhD. And well, yeah, I'm providing researchers with the academic writing training that I wish I had received. The biggest thanks really to my team and to the members of the Researchers Writing Academy. I'm so, so grateful for all of you. And yeah, just like reminiscing, thinking about reflecting on my journey since my PhD. Yeah, it's just making me thankful, really. So thank you all so much for supporting me, for being there, um, and for becoming a member of the Researchers Writing Academy. All right, let's get to our listener question. Well, our listener question today is from Dinah. And Dinah is asking, I'm going to read it out. I have been tasked with writing my first paper and it's overwhelming. I just don't know where to start. Well, first of all, Dinah, congratulations that you have collected enough data to write a paper. That is really, really cool. Um, and I do want to say, writing a first paper or writing a paper in general is hard, is really, really difficult. So please just know, whatever you're experiencing, this is like totally normal and totally to be expected. Um, Really, it's not strange if you like find this super overwhelming. Actually, what I find always strange is like there's so little guidance on writing papers. Um, and honestly, if you do it learning by doing, it's a bit of a rough road. So I recommend, if you can at all, join a course, join a writing program. You may want to ask your supervisor if there's money for it, if they have money for it. Often departments have money. Actually, we should have a podcast episode soon on like how to ask for those funds, because there are professional development funds usually available at most universities. And well, maybe actually university has a program. Like, do check that. And of course, we would love to guide you step by step through the process inside the Researchers Writing Academy. But we also know, of course, not everyone has the option to join us. So in terms of like concrete advice, I would say do not start sitting down and write. Like, do not start and just like, starting to write a paper. But first of all, you want to really sort through your data, like really look through your data and kind of understand which data do you want to include, which story do you want to tell, and very importantly, which journal do you want to publish in? Like, where do you think the story should go? Like, do a lot of like kind of pre-work. That really is the best way. And then talk to your supervisor, talk to your co-authors about whether they agree with that before you send them like a whole finished draft. Like, even if they're asking for that, because they may not be aware what the best process of writing a paper is, but really, I would suggest ask them for feedback on sort of your storyboard first. And then once you have that, and once everyone agrees on that, you can start kind of outlining your sections. Then you can, write the sections, do like title and abstract. I would say do that last. And this was kind of just a quick run through. So if you want to know more, I have a whole episode on like the journal publication formula, the writing process that I recommend. And I believe that's episode number 2. So have a listen, have a look. And see if you want to know more about the process. Definitely another tip I would give you is break down this project into tasks. Like, it's super overwhelming if you just have like this task in your calendar that's like write paper or something like that. Like, our brain can't work like that. Like, break it down and have like very concrete chunks of tasks that you're doing at any given writing session. Yeah, well, Dinah, good luck with your first paper. I hope you do get some assistance. And really, it will get easier. Like, the first time really is the hardest. The first paper you write is going to be the hardest. It's going to get more easier and easier as you go. And yeah, good luck, good luck. Let us know how you are getting on. Everyone else, and Dinah, of course, as well. Thank you for listening. Thank you for making it to the end. I appreciate you, and well, bye. If you would like to submit a question for me to answer on the podcast, please head to researcherswritingpodcast.com/question. That's researcherswritingpodcast in one word.com/question. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, it would really mean the world to me if you could review it in your favorite platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whichever app you're using. The more reviews a show has, the more likely it will be shown to others who are looking for podcasts in the academic writing space. So thank you.